ahead and create some SuperElevation for project. Once you have your geometry created and a corridor set up, you're ready to create some SuperElevation. First thing you'll want to do is create a MicroStation 2D file for your SuperElevation. I have one here called corridor or SuperElevation example here, DGN. You're going to need a couple reference files. You're going to need the geometry for the SuperElevation that you would like to create. So I'm going to go ahead and attach that. And I'm also going to attach the plan drafting that represents my edges of pavement. So once I create my super lanes, I want to see if it matches up with what I have drawn. Once I have those, I'm ready to create some SuperElevation. Now the tools are going to be underneath the corridor modeling task, and there's the furthest one here on the left, create SuperElevation sections, would be the first one that you'd select, and then you're going to create SuperElevation lanes. Then you're going to calculate your SuperElevation, and then the final thing is you're going to assign that to a corridor. One thing to note when you create your SuperElevation sections, it's going to go ahead and place that on the default level of your MicroStation file. So go ahead and change that to be DSN super section for your level. Then go ahead and do a save settings. So the first thing I'm going to do is create the SuperElevation section. And I'm going to call mine the same as my alignment name, so ML052. I'm just going to go ahead and accept. I'm just going to follow the prompts. It says locate alignment. And then it's going to ask me for a beginning station. So you're basically creating the super section for, that alignment. So I'm going to go ahead and type in the beginning station here. And then it's going to ask you for the end. And I'm just following the prompts. And then here, the minimum tangent length, it's basically asking you what's the tangent length between curves if you want to create a super section for each curve. If you don't want to do that, basically you're going to have one design speed for your entire alignment. I'm going to type in a large number here, like 10,000. And then that's it. And then it created my super section. That's kind of all it is. Kind of like when you create your corridor the first time. So now it's going to ask me enter a lane name. So I'm just going to call it left. I'm going to start with my left lane. And this is going to ask me for two types, a primary or auxiliary. And you're going to want to use primary, where primary is going to use the calculations from your SEP file or the SuperElevation preference file. And if you were to use auxiliary, it's more for like adding turn lanes, secondary lanes, or like manually computing cross slopes. So the majority of the time it's going to be primary. So I'm going to go ahead and accept primary. Side of center lane, I'm going to say it's left since we're doing the left side. Inside edge offset, and since this is an undivided roadway, it's going to be 0. In the lane width, it's going to be 14. And then my normal cross slope will be -2. And that was it. And so now it's asking me for if I want to create another lane name, and I'm going to here. I'm going to call it right. Primary. And this will be on the right side of my geometry here. 0 for the inside edge offset. And the lane width will be 14. And my normal cross slope will be -2. So now it's asking me for if I want to create another lane, and I don't, so I'm going to go ahead and right click out of that. And now it's asking me, and it's taking me right into the next command. So if I was to look over here, so I've created my SuperElevation lanes, and now I'm going to go ahead and calculate SuperElevation. So it's asking me to pick, the SEP file, your SuperElevation preference file. So it kind of takes you through the commands automatically if you're just following the prompts here. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Alt down arrow to select my preference file. And the ones that you're going to pay particular attention to are going to be the 16-foot ramp, 18-foot loop, rural, and urban. And you can find more information in the design manual on these. But in this case, it's a rural project, so I'm going to go ahead and pick my rural preference file. And I'm just following the prompts here, and I'm going to accept that. And then it's asking you to pick your design speed and your max super here. So I'm going to use my down arrow. I'm going to say I'm going to create 6% max at 55 miles an hour. I'm going to go ahead and accept here. Then my L selection is going to be 12. Design speed is 55. My transition type will be linear. And number of lanes I'm going to do is 2. And then I have an undivided roadway. And then here it's asking me to open the editor. It's like a SuperElevation editor. Let's go ahead and say yes here. So here in the SuperElevation editor would be a chance where you could come in here and manually adjust your SuperElevation. So I'm going to go ahead and close this dialog. You can see it created some SuperElevation lanes down here. So let's go ahead. One thing it's going to do is place it on the fill. So you can see it created the SuperElevation. It's got the color and stuff as it transitions. So once you're done with that, you're ready to assign that SuperElevation to your corridor. So I'm going to go back and open up my corridor for that alignment. And I'm going to attach that SuperElevation DGN to my corridor DGN. Oops, the wrong one. I did it again. Here we go. So once you get your corridor DGN open, then we can go ahead and attach the SuperElevation. So I'm just going to open up my reference dialog. I'm going to attach my SuperElevation. Oh, it looks like I might have attached it to the wrong file. Yeah. I didn't want to attach it to my 3D model. I want to attach it to my plan. There we go. You can see it kind of comes in here. So if I highlight over there it is, SuperElevation section. I created the ML52. Let me close the 3D view there. So now you just come back to your corridor modeling tasks. And right here, assign SuperElevation to corridor. It just says locate first SuperElevation section, which is going to be the one that you attach. So I'm going to accept that. Right now it's asking me locate next super elevation section, which I don't have. I just created one because I wanted the same super elevation rate applied for the length of that alignment. So I'm going to go ahead and reset here. Now it's asking me to locate the corridor I would like to attach my super elevation to. So I'm going to locate my corridor. And this is kind of familiar. Used to look like the roadway designer, where here's my left and right lanes, here's my pivot point, which is center line in this case because I have an undivided 2-lane roadway, and then my left edge of pavement and right edge of pavement. If you don't see these coming up or filling out for you, maybe when you did your super lanes, it didn't match your template lanes. So let's say you have 14-foot lanes, but your template says it's 12. So it wouldn't populate, but you have the ability to go select other point constraints within that template. So I'm going to hit OK here, because that looks right. And then it's going to go through and attach that super elevation to my corridor. And you can see down here in the status bar, it's doing that. Another thing to point out, if you don't see your point constraints from your template showing up in where you associate your super elevation here, and this associate super elevation dialog, in the point constraints in your templates is a new feature they've added that you just have to tag the point constraints in your templates with I want to be able to calculate super elevation with this point constraint. So I'll open up my template after this. So it looks like it's done. I'm going to hit OK here. Guess still thinking about it. So now it's asking me locate next super elevation. I'm just going to go ahead and right click. Actually, I'm going to escape out of this because I don't need to add any more super elevation. Let's go open up the template library quick. So on your templates, if I open up the point properties for, let's say, left edge of pavement, and I double click on that, see there's a new point property in here called super elevation flag. If that was unchecked, this point wouldn't be available for me to add super elevation to. So if you're creating your own and you want super elevation to work, you're going to need to go ahead and make sure you have that point property selected. So once you have the super elevation, you could cut cross sections. We'll cut some dynamic cross sections here. And you can see if super elevation was applied. Looks like it's gonna. I think once you open up this cross section view, it's gonna go through and have to update this too with the super. So sometimes you gotta kind of pay attention to the status bar. And these dynamic views are pretty neat. We can add some temporary dimension lines to make sure our super was applied, and just see it rotating. And we'll do that here once it finalizes. All right. And so you can see the pink nodes on here, kind of what you're used to. You kind of have a point, point control now on that left edge and right edge of pavement once the super has been applied. And you can scroll through there. So let's see where we get into curve. So here we go. So we can also add in some dynamic dimension lines. Right here, these show place dimension. So I select that. It says select cross section view. Let's go ahead and start point. You can just data point in the view. And and then we'll just go to center line. And we should be able to watch those update. Once we get through the curve here. Here we go. So here you can kind of check and see if it's been applied and seeing if it's calculating right here in a cross-section view. Another way you can adjust SuperElevation, I forgot, is if we go back into the SuperElevation file. You can dynamically adjust it. So I'm going to go ahead and turn my fill off. But if I highlight, so here's my super section, if I was to highlight that, you can see down here it gives me what the super is, gives me the station. I can actually select it and physically move it or dynamically move it. So you could adjust the super this way. You can also highlight the station and you could change it here, but I personally like going to the SuperElevation editor. So you would just grab the SuperElevation editor, locate your super section here, and it brings it up all the information here that you could adjust it. So this is probably the best way to do it. So that was it for SuperElevation.